Your brain is not on your side. Not always. Not when it matters most. It was built for one job, keep you alive, and it will lie, stall, and negotiate to do that job, even when staying alive isn't the same as actually living. Nobody warns you about this. You spend your whole childhood being told to trust your gut, listen to your instincts, follow your heart, and nobody ever mentions that the loudest voice in your head has an agenda, and that agenda is comfort, not greatness. I found this out the hard way. At 4 in the morning, standing in a cold kitchen, staring at a stack of unopened bills and a laptop I hadn't touched in 3 weeks. I told myself I'd start the business when things settle down. Things never settle down. That's not a season you wait for. It's a sentence your brain hands you so you never have to start. And I believed it. I believed it for years, actually, because it never once felt like a lie. It felt like patience. It felt like maturity. It felt like the responsible thing a grown adult says to himself. Here's the trick it plays. It doesn't sound like fear. It sounds like patience. You're tired. You'll do better tomorrow when you're fresh. This isn't the right moment. Every excuse arrives dressed as wisdom. That's what makes it dangerous. You don't fight it because you don't recognize it as the enemy. You think it's you, giving yourself good advice. You think the version of you that wants to quit is the smart one, the grounded one, the one who's finally being honest. And the version of you that wants to push is treated like the reckless one, the naive one, the one who doesn't understand how tired you really are. It isn't advice. It's a stall tactic with a calm voice. And once you see that clearly, you can never fully unsee it again. The moment everything changed, I didn't have a breakthrough. I had a bathroom mirror and 40 extra pounds I didn't want to look at anymore. I stopped calling myself stressed and started calling myself what I actually was. Someone who kept choosing the easy 5 minutes over the hard 5 years. That reframe cost me nothing and changed everything, because you cannot fix a problem you've renamed to protect your own feelings. Think about how much energy we spend on the renaming. We don't call it avoidance, we call it processing. We don't call it quitting, we call it pivoting. We don't call it fear, we call it being realistic. Every one of those words is a soft blanket we throw over the same cold fact. We didn't do the thing. And as long as the blanket stays on, we never have to feel how cold it actually is underneath. So I wrote it down. Not affirmations, accusations. You quit the gym in March. You said you'd call her back and didn't. Stuck to the mirror where I couldn't pretend not to see it. Every morning I read the charge sheet, and every morning I had one job. Answer it with something other than words. Not with a plan, not with a promise. With an action, however small, that the old version of me wouldn't have taken. The first week, almost nothing changed. I still made most of the same choices, but something in the back of my mind started keeping score differently. I wasn't grading myself on how I felt anymore. I was grading myself on what I did while feeling that way. That's a small distinction on paper and a massive one in practice, because feelings are unreliable narrators. Feelings lie constantly. Actions don't lie. Actions are the only part of you that tells the truth every single time. Why arguing with your brain never works so tired? You will never out-debate the part of your mind whose entire purpose is talking you out of discomfort. It has decades of practice. It knows your exact pressure points. What excuse works when you're tired? Which one works when you're embarrassed? Which one works at 11 p.m. when nobody's watching? It has studied you longer than anyone else on earth. It knows which argument you've never been able to resist, and it will deploy that argument at the exact moment you're weakest, because that's when it's most likely to win. So don't debate it. Move before the debate starts. Shoes on before the argument forms. Hand on the doorknob before your brain finishes its opening statement. Action first, feeling later, or feeling never. It genuinely doesn't matter, because by the time the case is built, you're already 3 steps down the hall. This sounds almost too simple to matter, but simple isn't the same as easy. The debate doesn't announce itself with a trumpet. It creeps in as a single, reasonable-sounding thought, maybe just 5 more minutes. And if you engage with that thought even for a second, you've already opened the door to the whole courtroom. You will find yourself, 20 minutes later, having constructed an entire legal defense for staying exactly where you are, and it will sound completely rational, because your brain is very, very good at sounding rational. I want you to notice something the next time this happens to you. Notice how the thought never says quit. It never says give up. It always finds some more dignified language. Take care of yourself. Listen to your body. Don't force it. Those phrases aren't wrong in every context. Sometimes rest really is the right call. But you already know the difference deep down between genuine recovery and a costume that recovery is wearing. The body that's actually injured doesn't need to argue with you. It just stops. The excuse that needs to argue is almost never telling you the truth. The pattern repeats. Learn it nestures. Your excuses aren't random. They're scheduled. Monday, it's you need rest. You just started the week. Wednesday, it's you've earned a break. Look how hard you've worked. Friday, it's you deserve to relax. The weekend's basically here. Sunday, it's start fresh next week. No point starting something now. Once you see it's a rotation and not a revelation, it loses its grip. You stop reacting to a surprise attack and start recognizing a rerun. I started keeping an actual list, not a metaphorical one, a real note on my phone, dated, every time I caught the voice mid-sentence. After about 6 weeks, the pattern was undeniable. The excuses repeated almost word for word, different day, same script. And there's something strangely freeing about that discovery, because a predictable opponent is a beatable opponent. You can't prepare for chaos. You can absolutely prepare for a rerun. This is where most people give up on the whole project, by the way. Not because the fight is too hard, but because they expect the fight to end. They think if they just push through hard enough, one time, the voice will finally shut up for good. It won't. It's not supposed to. The goal was never silence. The goal is recognition speed. The first time an excuse shows up, it can take you down completely. The 100th time, you clock it in about 2 seconds and keep walking. That's not because the voice got weaker. It's because you got faster at spotting it. The evidence your brain can't argue with when. When the voice gets loud, don't reach for motivation. Reach for proof, a specific memory, a time you were sure you'd break and didn't. Your brain can talk you out of hope, out of plans, out of good intentions. It cannot talk you out of something that already happened. Keep 2 or 3 of those moments close. They're not inspiration. They're evidence in a trial your brain keeps trying to relitigate. Here's why this matters so much. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are exactly the terrain your brain controls. If you try to fight it on the battlefield of feelings, you're fighting on its home turf, with its weapons, by its rules. But a memory, a real, specific, already happened memory, isn't a feeling, it's a fact. I finished that project at 2 a.m. after saying I couldn't. That's not up for debate. It happened. No amount of clever internal argument can undo it. Build that list deliberately. Don't wait for the low moment to try to remember it. You won't be able to think clearly in the low moment. That's the whole problem with low moments. Sit down right now or tonight and write out 3 to 5 specific times you did the hard thing anyway. Keep the list somewhere you'll actually see it. A note in your phone, a card in your wallet, whatever works. The next time the voice tells you you can't handle this, you're not going to argue back with a feeling. You're going to hand it a fact. What winning actually feels like. Nobody tells you the truth about this part. Winning doesn't feel like triumph. It feels quiet. The noise doesn't vanish. It just stops being in charge. It moves to the back seat. It still talks. You just stop listening to it, like it's the driver. People expect transformation to feel like a movie montage, swelling music, sudden clarity, a version of themselves that wakes up one day and simply wants to do the hard thing. That's not what happens, and if you're waiting for that feeling before you act, you'll wait your entire life. What actually happens is smaller and stranger. You keep feeling resistance. You keep hearing the voice. The difference is that its opinion stops being the deciding vote. You listen to it the way you'd listen to a coworker whose judgment you don't fully trust. Present, audible, occasionally worth a glance, never in charge of the final call. And that's the whole shift. Not motivation, not confidence, just who's driving, the cost of staying comfortable. Let's be honest about the trade you're actually making every time you side with the voice. It never feels like a trade in the moment. It feels like relief. You skip the workout and you feel better instantly. Lighter, looser, like you dodged something. Nobody warns you that the bill comes later, and it comes with interest. Every time you let the voice win, it doesn't just cost you that one instance. It reinforces the pathway. It tells your brain, correctly, that this tactic works on you. And your brain, being an efficient machine, will use that exact tactic again, a little sooner next time, a little easier to deploy. Comfort isn't a one-time purchase. It's a subscription, and the price goes up the longer you stay signed up. I think about the version of me that kept saying tomorrow for years. He wasn't lazy in the way people usually mean that word. He worked. He showed up places. He just never showed up for the one thing that actually scared him, and every day he didn't, the thing got a little bigger in his mind, a little more mythologized, a little further out of reach. That's what avoidance does. It doesn't shrink the mountain, it grows it, because every day you don't climb it, your mind quietly adds another story to the summit. Somebody else's ceiling is not yours works. There's a specific trap I want to name directly, because it catches smart, capable people all the time. It's the trap of borrowed limits. Somewhere along the way, somebody told you what you were capable of. A teacher, a parent, a coach, an ex, and you took their guess and filed it away as a fact. I'm not a numbers person. I'm not disciplined like that. I've just never been a morning person. These sound like self-knowledge. Most of the time, they're secondhand opinions you never actually tested. The brain loves a borrowed limit because it's a limit you don't have to defend. You can just point to the origin story. That's just how I am. But how you are, and how you've been, are not the same sentence, even though they sound almost identical. How you've been is a record of past choices. How you are implies something fixed, permanent, unchangeable. Your brain wants you to blur those two together because a fixed identity requires no further action. A history of choices, on the other hand, is something you can start writing differently starting today. Building the callus. Here's the part that actually changes your baseline over time, not just your mood on a given day. Every time you override the voice, instead of obeying it, you're not just winning that one moment. You're teaching your nervous system something. You're teaching it that the alarm it just sounded was a false alarm. Do that enough times, in enough different situations, and the alarm itself starts to recalibrate. It doesn't go off as early. It doesn't scream as loud. Not because the challenge got easier, but because you got harder to rattle. This is why the first month of any real change is the worst month, and almost nobody warns you about that either. The voice is loudest right when you first start ignoring it, because it hasn't learned yet that ignoring it is going to become a habit. It escalates. It gets more creative with its excuses. It's not because you're doing something wrong, it's because you're doing something right, and the old system is fighting to stay in control. If you can get through that initial spike without folding, the volume drops. Not to zero, but enough that the fight starts to feel almost normal, almost sustainable, almost like just another part of your day instead of a battle you have to win from scratch every single time. When you've genuinely fallen behind, I want to speak directly to the person listening to this who feels like they've already lost too much time. Years of starting tomorrow, a body or a business or a relationship that shows the wear of a decade of avoided decisions. Your brain will use that history against you with brutal efficiency. You've tried before. You always go back to old patterns. Why would this time be different? Here's the flaw in that argument, and it's a real flaw, not a motivational slogan. Your brain is selectively editing the footage. It shows you every attempt that fell apart. It does not show you how close some of those attempts actually got, or what specifically caused the collapse, or how much you learned in the process that you didn't have the first time. A failed attempt isn't proof you can't do the thing. It's data about one specific way of trying that didn't work. Those are two completely different conclusions, and your brain will always push you toward the harsher one, because the harsher one requires nothing further from you. If you're broken, there's nothing to do. If you just haven't found the right approach yet, there's work in front of you, and work is exactly what the voice is trying to help you avoid. Tonight's assignment, write down the excuse your brain uses on you most. The real one, not the polite version. Say it out loud once. Notice how small it sounds outside your head compared to how big it feels inside it. Then write your evidence list. 3 to 5 specific times you did the hard thing when every part of you wanted to quit. Keep that list somewhere you'll see it tomorrow morning, not somewhere buried in a folder you'll forget exists. Then tomorrow, do the one thing it told you not to do. Not everything. One thing. Prove the voice wrong one time, on purpose, in the open, where you can't quietly pretend it didn't count. Do that enough times and you stop being someone who's convinced by the voice. You become someone who's just used to ignoring it. Not fearless. Not immune. Just experienced enough to recognize the con the moment it opens its mouth. That's the whole fight. Not one big war you win and walk away from. 1,000 small ones, most of them invisible to everyone but you, that you decide, on purpose, over and over, to win. Start with the next one.